All right. Hello, everyone. I am meeting today with our second time winners of the Supercell Bowl. Supercell Bowl 2022 and 2023. I hope that's not echoing in the background because I can hear myself. Um, it's not echoing for you, is it? Okay. So we have the Yukon MLS team. You all were our first place winners in both years. We're so excited to have you on today. I want to start out with a statement because there were some perceptions of some things that were said on some of the videos during the 2023 season. So I want to formally say that there was never, ever, ever a problem with the legitimacy of the scores that were submitted. Aaron and I were completely amazed from week one about how amazing those times were. And I remember saying, and I still stand by this today, that I can't even touch those times. They were so incredible. I thank you so much for participating, and you all did such an amazing job. All of those jokes were purely just for fun, and at the heart of it was amazement for how amazing the scores were. One thing that I want to mention is that if there ever is a problem with a team's time, or there is a possible concern about the legitimacy of someone's time or score, there is a process that has to be done when submitting scores that there is proof of the time or the score. So there was never ever a situation where the legitimacy was coming into question. And if a team ever does have the situation where they're not submitting a score that is accurate or is their own, then they would never continue on in the competition. With that being said, I want to full-heartedly apologize for any negativity that may have come your way or been thought about, because Aaron and I were really just trying to make a fun show, and it was just pure amazement because we still are amazed. There's no way I'm ever going to get to those times. I don't even try because you all just did such a great job. So speaking of which, I just want to run down a little bit of the information because if you haven't seen any of the episodes that we had this past season, I just want to tell you how amazing they did. All right, so from week one, um, number one, they never got a non-perfect score. So a perfect score is when you can select hematology cells correctly in 30 of them in 1 minute. All right. And the perfect score ends up becoming a time. And so a time for a perfect score would be less than a minute. Well, we started out with Yukon in week one with 23.57 seconds. From the very beginning, I was just astonished. Um, the um, the the people, the team that were the runner-ups for the Supercell Bowl this year were the Prairie Stars, and their time, they were in sixth place in the nation, and their time was 29.25 seconds. You all were just doing so well very from the very beginning. And as we were going through, it was like 3 seconds off here, 2 seconds off there. And I just never, I never thought that it would be possible even to get less than 30 seconds. And then you just prove me wrong over and over again. And the final time in week seven for the Supercell Bowl, when it truly counted, was 17.67 seconds. So, yeah, that deserves a round of applause. I cannot believe that that's even possible. And I know that was part of a joke, but truly, it's out of amazement. Um, So, what that says to me is that you all were practicing like crazy and most likely practicing before the season, which is a good thing to do. I tried to get my team to do that. They didn't do that. So, if you could give any advice, what would it be to anyone out there coming into the Cell Bowl for the first time or doing the Cell Atlas quiz? What would be your advice to them on how to do their best?
So it was similar to last year, Tiffany. We incentivized using the app, and we actually took it a step further this year, because last year's class we just incentivized it for the hematology course. And again, if they got a perfect score, or their best score that they submitted on the app, if they submitted that to me, then I counted it for a lab practical grade. Again, it was a lab quiz. And this year we took it a step further. They take a class in the spring. They take Lauren's class, which is kind of an introduction to medical laboratory science. And Lauren, why don't you go ahead and explain how you incorporated the Cell-Vision app into that introductory class?
Sure. So the introductory class, it's kind of split up into like modules so that everyone gets kind of a taste of each section of the lab. So we have a blood bank, we have a hematology, we have a chemistry. So for hematology, we introduced the idea of diffs and normal cells and all that. But then I also made Cell-Vision doing the Cell Bowl quiz, I think 5 times was an assignment. So I give them points for trying it 5 times. They didn't, well, I think I was pretty upfront. I told you guys that we had we had a competition coming up and we had to train. So it was an assignment as part of the course, and it was meant to be fun to try it out, see how many cells they could identify. So that's kind of where that assignment came from. But yeah, now it's a semester before they take hematology. So um they get a nice taste up at the front, which I'm sure they appreciate now.
And also kind of what I did to get better last semester um, during fundamentals when it was introduced. I was doing a lot of doom scrolling on my phone on social media. So I uninstalled all my social media apps to prevent that so I could focus more on studying. But then I would open my phone and be like, well, now what am I going to do? And so I started playing Cell-Vision. And I kind of took a break over the summer, but then I did the same thing this semester. Was I uninstalled all my apps, and then if I found myself opening my phone or needing to take a break from what I was doing, that's what I would do. But then once the competition started, I pretty much exclusively played during class time. So I did, because I have ADHD. So like just sitting there, we're in class, we're in lecture 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, 4 hours straight. So sitting there, and while Lauren and Bruce are engaging and wonderful teachers, sitting for 4 hours straight is difficult. So both of them can attest. I just be sitting there tapping while they were lecturing. But I still obviously was able to complete all my classes and do well. So it worked. It helped give me a break, and helped our team win.
That's in case anybody didn't know, that was the famed Sarah. She had the winning score. So let's talk about that. Were you considered the MVP for the entire thing? And or did you have any MIP status, like most improved? Because I know last year Lakshmi was the one of the team captains along with Ruth, and she. When I asked that question, she said that she was the MVP, and it came out that she was also the MIP. Did you see that happening this year too?
What kind of scores were you guys getting initially in the spring when you first started using the app?
I'm glad you asked because as Lauren was mentioning that assignment, I like pulled it up to remember, and I have screenshots. So obviously unable to achieve a perfect score at that time. What I submitted for a grade was a 7 out of 30, a 9 out of 30, a 12, an 11, and a 13.
Wow.
I
So
believe
you're the most improved.
I believe I was the first person to get a sub 30. I got, I think, a 26 second time in my first week of using the app
Wow.
back in the spring. But then as soon as Sarah broke sub 20, she took it from there. I was never catching her.
Now there were a couple weeks of the tournament that your score was the lowest that we submitted, right?
Yeah, I think the first
Yeah.
2 or 3 weeks were
Yeah.
my times, just to kind of keep it interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know because I know prior to the tournament, Sarah was getting times in the 20s, low 20s, like 20 point something. But yeah, around the start of the tournament, I don't know, maybe she was a little out of practice, but yeah, Alex's scores were our best. So we submitted, I think, 2 out of the first 3 weeks, Alex's scores. And then once Sarah got back into the swing of things again, then yeah, she's tough to catch.
And
Yeah,
Mia
it
was on
was.
there too.
Oh, Mia
Mia did
got
well.
down to the 20s. But
Yeah.
yeah, there was one point where like I was able to get like a really low score, and then I got sick. I was out for, I don't know, a few days, and just even when I was back, I was just really not feeling well and wasn't playing. So there was a period where like I had gotten a 20 like close to 20 seconds. And then I couldn't even complete a game because I was just so out of practice from not playing 12 hours a week like I had previously been. At one point my classmates asked how often I played. I was like, oh, that's a good question. And so I went into my like digital well-being thing on my phone, and that week it had said I had played 12 hours, which was exclusively during 20 hours, or was it 20 hours? Yeah, 20 hours of class. So that counts as just being open too. So sometimes I have it open and wasn't playing, but yeah, like
That's
sometimes like
incredible.
it was wild because you would think it would be consistent, but you know, I would get like a good like, and we saw it at the end of the competition where the second place team, University of Illinois Springfield, they got a 20-second time, and then they weren't able to duplicate that, and we definitely experienced that where you know, I was able to get a good time, and then all of a sudden I like couldn't even finish it some days, just depending on where my head was at and my reflexes.
Yeah, we saw that in the first ever season also. Weaver State, Amy at Weaver State, she was just really, really setting the bar the entire time. And then it seemed like she got tired, and she ended up you know, Erin from Southern West Virginia, she ended up getting it. They were always neck and neck. Looking at the scores, you all were a little neck and neck with some of them, but it started to really pull away in the last three. I'm sorry, so many windows up over here. In the last 3 weeks, you had the Prairie Stars, as you were saying, right with you. They were second in the nation, but there was still like a 1 second difference. So they had the 20.9 in week 5. you all had 19.14. You already broke the 20 at that point. And then week 6 was 21.39. So they went up a little bit and you went down 13.13 seconds. So 19.01. And then for the finale, they went up to 23 and you went down to 17. Oh my gosh, you don't know how much I was just flipping every time that I opened up the app and just seeing, okay, well, where are we? And every time I saw that really low score, I was like, that's got to be UConn. And it was. So Alex, great job for you too. You really set the bar high or low, I guess, for the 23 seconds. And then 22 down in week 3. And it just kept going. So were you all ever having some camaraderie and some fun competition in your own team? Because I know that happens with ours. They're like, wait a minute, who's winning right now? So were you all going, wait a minute, what's your time? I'd like to hear about that.
I was definitely motivated by Mia, who's not on the call with us today, because our times in the last couple weeks were very much neck and neck. We both ended up with a 21-second time, with hers a couple tenths lower than mine. And I wanted to get that second place, but the end of the semester just got really busy and I didn't practice enough to drop down.
Yeah, so Tiffany, it was amazing. The final week we had 3 times that were, I think, what was yours, Alex, around 21? 20?
Yeah, me and I both had 21-second times.
Yeah. So we had 3 team submissions that were under 21 seconds, which, I mean, I guess introducing the app earlier in the spring semester really paid off. So
and knowing that I didn't initially know that Lakshmi had gotten a 19.8. So when I was like getting down at the beginning of this semester, I was getting down like lower in the 20s. I was like, oh, I'm gonna beat the score. And then I found out it was 19.8 and I was like, oh, I don't think I can do that. And there was a lot of back and forth there in my mind where sometimes I was like, I'm gonna do it, I can do it. And then there are other times where like, I'm not gonna be able to do this. It's just not possible, because I got into those slumps where I wasn't finishing or I wasn't getting close to my lowest time. So I didn't think it was possible. And then the last week, really, I started like cranking out a lot of sub 20 times. And the last day of the competition, that Thursday, like I said, I exclusively played during class. So basically what we would do is I would say, I'll play, I'll let you know at noon if I get a better score. But other than that, this is what my best score is so far this week. And I was sitting in class and I did my gasp that Mary, I want Mary to just tell you really quick.
Well, so obviously Sarah was surprising herself. So every time she'd get a lower score, she would gasp really loudly. But I was traumatized by, we had a spider in the classroom earlier in the semester. And so I just assumed every time there was a gasp that the spider was back. And so like Sarah would apologize to me. She'd be like, I'm sorry, Mary. I know it really scares you, because my assumption was it's a bug, but it was always one of Sarah's really good times.
But so that day, that Thursday, the last day to submit scores, it was, I want to say, it was 11:15. I gasped because I got an 18 point something. And I was like, oh my God, like this is amazing. And my classmate sitting next to me, Sue, because it was really close. It was like 18.1 something. It was really close to 17. So everyone was asking if I was going to try and get 17. And again, I only play during class because you know, I have children at home. You know what it's like. You can't do anything with small children at home. I open my phone and they're like, stop looking at it. I'm like, okay. Um, so or they come over and they try and play. I'm like, no, I'm trying to do this for time. So I told my classmate, you know, I'll try for the next 45 minutes, but it's probably not going to happen. It usually takes a while to get a better time. And then 11 minutes later, I gasped again, and I got the 17-second. And at that point, I was like, okay, I'll stop there.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Do you, you mentioned Lakshmi, we all have, because she, you know, she was the start you all came in for the first time ever last year. And did you ever contact her, or did you use the method that she did with the 2 fingers?
So I never contacted her, and it was funny because it wasn't until later in the semester that I figured out on my own the whole putting it down and tapping.
Okay.
But then I went back and watched the video where she says that, and I was like, well, that's information that would have been great to know earlier, because I could have, you know, been perfecting my score earlier, because originally I was holding it up and tapping it. And it wasn't until I put it down that I really started getting those better scores. But the only thing differently that I do is I only use one hand because I find that if I use both, sometimes my brain will say, you know, right hand touch it, but my left hand will tap it. So I find that I make a lot more mistakes, even if it might be like marginally faster for my left hand to tap the left side of the screen. I tend to make more mistakes. So I only use my right hand and I kind of like hover over it. So that's kind of how I do that.
Yeah, I tried to mention it in the episodes throughout the season this year. And then I realized that the way that I had Zoom set at the time, you couldn't even see us. So I was showing in the video, but when we were filming it, we could see each other, so it wasn't that we noticed until after it was filmed. So I was trying to pass that along. I don't know.
I think you made a comment, Tiffany, one time. You made a comment where one of the teams submitted a selfie, and one of the students was doing this on his phone, and you said, "Oh no, he's not going to have a chance to win because he has to do it like
You got to do that,
Lakshmi."
yeah. I haven't tried it that way. I wish I could play in class. That would be fun. You crack me up when you're talking about that. It's so funny.
Yeah, so
But
you
no,
know, you started out asking questions for other programs, and I don't know if our response is really going to be adopted by other programs that we would encourage students to play in class. But
yeah, we'll see.
Sarah's unique. Sarah's unique in a lot of ways, and she was able to do well in class by you know, absorbing material while she was playing the game, which was
Clearly, yeah.
and doing well in the game. I mean, it's not like she compromised the coursework or the game work. So yeah, I don't know if other classes can you know, replicate, if there's if Sarah has some twins out there or something. I don't know, but
I was gonna say Sarah not only ended up with our best score, but she's also one of the most active participants in class. Like, she's always got something to say, and she gets the material too. So honestly, like, I don't know how she does it. It's really impressive.
Well, I think it really boils down to a lot of students or people that go into the lab are kinesthetic and visual learners. And my daughter is very much that way as well. My oldest is. And, you know, we would give her like fidget spinners and stuff for class. Yeah. And I said, sweetheart, you don't need to worry about that because she's being made fun of in class. I said, you don't need to be worried about that. I'm that way too. When I get upset, the thing that I have to do is something physical so I can think through my emotions. So I go and do the dishes, or I go and run, or I go and work out somehow. And I see that a lot in my classes where I have students, I'm like, you can get up and walk around. I don't care, you know, just just walk around. If you do what you got to do, I'm standing up all the time and I'm moving, and that helps me. And I don't want you to sit the whole time. If you're struggling, do what you got to do. So I totally, get how that's possible. And that sounds like a really great method. And it almost sounds like, when you're doing something and you have something on in the background, you're listening to it, because your brain can do three things at once. You're listening to it, and it's background noise. You're still taking in the information, but at the same time, you know it might go along with what you're doing. So I think that sounds like a little bit of reinforcement too, especially, if you were in hematology class. But it cracks me up to hear you say, oh yeah, I played exclusively in class and I was amazing.
Did we submit the picture of all of us with our cubes?
No.
So that was another thing that Sarah got us all into this semester, is by the end of it, all of us, we bought them for the teachers too. All of us ended up with these stress cubes.
Oh, wow.
So like, you're very right with the tactile, like how much that helped us, because we got to a point where I bet, being the teacher's perspective, we're all just sitting there messing with our cubes the whole class.
And
There
to
was-
clarify,
they-
Mia
whole
is the
time.
one who introduced the cubes. I just became the cube dealer because I went out and bought like 30 of them, so that, because you couldn't find them, they were unavailable everywhere, but I found one store that had them, so I bought enough for everyone to get one if they wanted one.
Yeah, there was a bunch of stuff coming into the classroom. What was the sand art stuff and things like that?
Kinetic sand. I brought
Kinetic sand.
kinetic sand one day, and then Mary ended up getting it. Mary made stockings for everyone, and she put kinetic sand. So we had kinetic sand, we had cubes. A very sensory oriented classroom.
Absolutely. That sounds great.
Play-Doh
If you look at all of the education out there for teachers, we're trying to meet all these needs. And like I said, in lab programs, people do great because they just want to be in lab, right? And they want to use their hands to do what it is that they're learning. I noticed that in class, they're like, just get me to lab and I'll understand it. So that's really great. I'm sorry, Laura, you were saying?
What I was gonna say, and how many of those cubes popped? That's
I popped one.
question.
Yeah, you popped one, and then Caitlin popped one.
Oh, okay. So two. We're up to two. They would see, because we would record our tests. So anytime we were taking a test, like, you'd see us, and I'd just be I'd be squeezing. I had like a color changing one, and you would just see all my stress coming out in the cube.
And I actually did use the cube while playing. So like I said, I played television with one hand, and then I would like roll the cube with my other hand.
I tell you, Tiffany, it was a little scary for me. I don't know how Lauren felt. It was a little scary because they all had these stress devices in their hand, and I was afraid to turn my back on them because I thought they were going to come flying my way.
I was not afraid, only because I know my reflexes, that was coming back at you faster than you threw it at me.
And she knows I can't throw, so.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Well, Sarah, you were talking about how you were looking and it was keeping track of how long you were playing. Do you know how many actual sessions you did, like a number?
I don't. There's no, the only like ticker information I had was my phone keeps track of how much time I use each app for. So that's the only, and that's a great suggestion for Bob, the person who kind of owns the Cell-O-Vision app, is to put a ticker on there so you can see, how many times you tried a game. And that's one of the things I did too, was once I was getting really fast and I was just doing it for time, because I became, so familiar with the cells, that if I like I said, if I used both hands, I would like tap the wrong one, or I would read, large lymphocyte, but I would just read large and I would hit a platelet instead because, large thrombocyte instead of giant thrombocyte. So I wouldn't continue on with the game if I got one wrong because I was going for time. And so I would get out of it. So there's probably a large, I don't even know how many I would have done, but it's probably a very high number.
So do you think if we said something like 300 that you would have hit that? Do you think you would have gone higher than 300?
I honestly, I don't know. Probably, I would guess probably because I played, I played during spring semester, and I played so
like
that I got 5 perfect scores because that was the goal, was to get 5 perfect scores. You didn't have to get that, but that was kind of the hope. So during spring semester, I did that. And then, again, once we started and if I was playing 12 hours a week, again, I wasn't playing like the whole time. I would just have it open. And then, when I wanted to play, I would start playing. But I would, probably 300, maybe more.
Wow. What about you, Alex and Mary? How many times do you think you've played?
So are you talking like times we like sat down and played, or the number of times we like started the quiz?
The times that you did the quiz.
Probably for me, like times I sat down was tough to say, like probably less than 100.
Okay.
But I burned through those quizzes because I was probably less efficient than Sarah. I failed many quizzes more than I passed. Because as soon as I click one cell wrong, I just exit out, start over.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
you were just going for the perfect from the beginning.
Just going
you
for
didn't
the
care
time.
about
Yeah.
anything else.
See, I'm on the other end where I was just trying to get most of the time I was just trying to get 30 out of 30. I think my personal best score was a 46 seconds. So
That's really good.
I'm just
I mean, it's
not very much improved.
17 seconds, but it's better than my time.
It is, but right, it was incentivized for us. So I really did improve to the point where I did produce 5 perfect scores. So I mean, I that's why when you said, Sarah, do you think you played 300 times? And I was like, oh, of course. I would say minimally, because even me, even though I never touched any of those like record-breaking times, I think I played hundreds of times, just attempting to get those 5 perfect scores. And I mean, it definitely helped. It's fun. It brought us all together to like be in this competition, but it also helped us just with our like hematology class, because then I'd show up and be like, oh, I've seen this before.
No, I think the app is great for helping with hematology, especially under like obviously it's for identifying, but when I was, especially the normoblasts, at one point I was getting really frustrated because I was getting them pretty consistently. And I wanted to know why, this one was orthochromatic, but this one was polychromatic. And so I went and I looked at the pictures, but then I also read the descriptions. And so when I was trying to get better at identifying them in my head, I would say, okay, so this one is this size, it has the pink to purple color, but this one, the nucleus is more condensed and it's more of a blue gray, or vice versa. It would be the lighter color with the more condensed chromatin. But being able to go back and look at those descriptions and read those descriptions and look at the pictures was really helpful. So that when we got into class and we're looking under the microscope, I already had those parameters in my head and was able to better identify cells from the get-go because I had that experience with the app.
And I think Lakshmi said something similar to that last year when she first saw a plasma cell under the microscope. She was, or it was a micromegakaryocyte. I'm sorry, a micromegakaryocyte. The first time she saw a micromegakaryocyte under the microscope, she was able to identify it because she had seen micromegakaryocytes on the app. And again, similar to what we saw last year, these students started using the app before we had hematology. And then we start out hematology with white blood cells, and they're looking at red cells, they're looking at platelets on the CellaVision app as well. And of course, they don't know the stages of red cell morphology yet or maturation yet because we haven't covered that yet. So they're kind of learning from the app. And then when we get to that portion in the hematology course, then I'm making an assumption that it's probably easier to then understand the different stages of red cell maturation because they've already seen many of those on a CellaVision app.
I think you're right with that. Priming the brain before you get to where it has to be used, that information. That's really great. They do have a great tutorial part on the app as well. And they're working on expanding the picture, expanding the pictures and the information provided. With that, do you all end up, or have you used the not necessarily the app, but the program that you can have on your computers? So for anyone watching right now, for all you educators out there, I did mention this in we did mention this in the first and the second and the this past season, where CellaVision offers the ability for programs to use MLS and MLT programs to use their program for free, because they want to encourage learning and seeing the types of things that you would see on television before you go. So it has the CBC there, and then it has the pictures that come up on the CellaVision. And if you are part of a affiliation with a clinical site and they have CellaVision there, you can transpose it to your account as well. You have to download them and then upload them to your program. So I'm seeing a lot of heads going, yes. Do you feel that pairing those pieces together is extremely helpful, or do you end up using one more so than the other, the app versus the program?
So this year, Tiffany, was the first year. One of the things we did with this class was, again, we introduced it in the spring, which we didn't do last year. And then the other thing we did for our hematology class, which is end of August, all of September, is we split our differentials. Prior to this year's class, we used to do all microscopy for our manual smears. This year, we met together as a faculty, and we decided that we're going to introduce, the proficiency testing program you mentioned through CellaVision. And half of the smears they looked at were digital, and half the smears they looked at were microscopic. So I think, again, they had to use that technology. Again, they had to identify digital images, both through the CellaVision proficiency testing program, which again, so they're used to looking at digital images from the app. And I think, well, I can have them comment on that, because again, I'm not a student in the class, but that was the intent, was that they were going to get a mixture of digital images, which of course is much more commonplace now in the clinical laboratory. But again, I'm old school, and I can't give up the microscope. So I still made them do a fair amount of microscopic work too.
I have to say, I prefer looking at things under the microscope. I think using the CellaVision program is definitely helpful for once we get to clinical and are working and we're familiar with how it works and everything. But, sometimes my classmates would ask me, oh, what do you think this is? And it's hard to tell when it's in a little box. You can't see the whole screen. And so my advice was to go over to the red cell portion and see if you can find that cell or a similar cell there, and kind of look at it in relation to other landmarks preferably, because it's always lymphs, right? Preferably a resting lymph. And if you don't have anything else, at least, the red cells around, see if the red cells are a normal size. It has the little circular size
Micrometer.
graph on it, to show how big like a normal red cell should be. So while I think using CellaVision is great, I think introducing it in the program is an excellent idea so that we're more prepared once we get into real life. But I think most lab people would say they prefer doing the actual microscopy, unless it's like a 0.5 white count, then maybe not.
And Jerry, that was interesting because I know you had mentioned because Jerry actually had clinical experience on the CellaVision. I never have. CellaVision was introduced after I went over to education and left the laboratory. But Jerry talked about a similar thing in when you started doing CellaVision smears. What's the first thing you do, Jerry?
Yeah, so just like kind of like what Sarah just mentioned, when we have a hard time looking at the images and it's a little bit difficult, the first thing we do is we grab that slide and we go right over to the microscope, because then you can move around, you can look at different stuff, and it really helps you out a lot to do a double check and not just go based off the images on CellaVision.
But you would use the red cell images as well to kind of get a big picture, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's the other thing you do. I mean, if you're just looking through the program, that exactly like Sarah said, go to the red cell and just kind of get the lay of the land, so to speak. It really helps out too. So definitely.
I do just want to add that one thing that I really liked that CellaVision allowed us to do is whenever we'd like have a tricky cell, like a schistocyte, like a like a cell where we had to come and be like, Bruce, what is this? The advice he would always give us is, well, put it with the neutrophils, put it with the lymphs, like put it in and classify it, and then go and look at that cell and how does it fit in with the bigger picture of that patient's cells. And so instead of just giving us the answer, he would have us kind of like take every avenue it could be and kind of help us to answer our own question in a way. And so that's something that the CellaVision software allowed us to do that perhaps we wouldn't have been able to with a slide. So I don't know, I think it was just an incredible teaching tool. And I know that really, really helped me, especially with monocytes in particular.
Yeah,
Those
I think
monocytes
that's
in
one of the
the
big
lymph.
strengths of CellaVision is that you have the ability to compare cells side by side.
Yes.
Whereas you're doing a manual differential, you see a cell, and then 50 cells later you see another cell, and it's like, geez, that kind of looked like one I saw 50 cells ago. But you can't really compare the two side by side. Whereas again, when you're classifying cells in CellaVision, you group them all together, you look at them, and then you pick and choose which ones belong and which ones don't.
Yeah, and you can move it around and you can like make mistakes and just like kind of organically like, oh, okay, I put it there, but I don't like it there anymore. And it just really helps the thought process and kind of helps you get like those patterns down in your head. And again, I just really liked the fact that you never really gave us the exact answer. You always made us think it through ourselves, which I think.
What if I didn't know the ansser? Did you ever think of that?
You know what? Then you had us all fooled. It was really
You don't
helpful. I
say
think
that.
it made us independent thinkers,
He knows the answer. I'm just telling you.
Yeah, Bruce knows the answer. He has all the slide numbers memorized.
Oh man.
He's incredible. Like we would be in class the next day after lab and he would know who had what slide and what they saw. Like he would just be able to remember that and remember the patient history from slide number 60. And it was Bruce knows his stuff. He's just being silly and humble.
I've heard that too. I've heard from other outside sources that he's really amazing. So that speaks a lot to you, Dr. Blanchard, how great you're doing. It goes far and wide. You don't know how far it goes.
It's like a Proteus, right? It just keeps spreading.
Just keep spreading. Yeah, you're swarming. Swarming the plate. Alex, do you have anything to add about how you feel about those different learning tools?
I think for both the Cell Quiz and for CellaVision proficiency software, just volume is key. The more times you look at cells on the app, the faster you can recognize them. And the more times you look at smears under CellaVision, the more times you see either different morphologies or just different stain preparations. I found myself occasionally going into the cell atlas and looking at the different cell descriptions to try to make a decision on the proficiency software. But there's only a small sample size, and sometimes cells just look weird depending how the smear was made. So the more times you can see like, oh, this is a lymph, this is also a lymph, this is a different looking lymph, the easier it'll be to class cells in the field.
I feel like those pictures that it takes, they're so close. It looks like something out of a textbook, and the one thing that I don't like is that you can't focus in and out to see, is that something resting on it or is it in the cell? That's the only thing that I have against it. I think it's an amazing tool. I think it's wonderful. There is, I think, I thought there was one application out there or simulator or something where it allows you to focus in and out. I don't remember what that is, but I think one is out there. So that would be neat if CellaVision could do that. I don't know if they can. But that would be really neat. Lauren, do you have anything to add about any of those applications or programs?
I think all of their kind of perceptions of how it helped them really say it all. I worked with CellaVision in the lab. I think it's great for especially for learning, like now in like an MLS classroom. Now when they go to clinical, it's something that they'll be exposed to, since most labs, or a lot of labs, use that. So then they won't be completely kind of blind to the technology. I think in class, I think the best part, is what was already said, is the side-by-side comparison. When you're just not sure, you go in and you're like, okay, I thought it was a mono. It's not now. I think that's the best part of CellaVision, especially for students learning, is that aspect. I think there's advantages in the lab that they'll get to see, but that's definitely the best learning tool, I think, as part of that kind of platform.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. It's been a really great conversation. I've had a good time. I've been crying this whole time because of how much Sarah's been having me laugh. But you all definitely did an amazing job, no question, from the very beginning. And Alex and Mary and Mia, if you didn't get that score that was on there, they were still amazing. Just the times that I'm hearing were incredible. And having a 7 is not a problem. We did have the opportunity to have the second chance, where there were the non-perfect scoring teams that went in and played alongside of you all, not in the Supercell Bowl, but in the second chance showdown. And
they were all perfect by the playoffs.
They were,
Ooh.
and I have something to say about that. Because they pushed us down. Oh my goodness. My team was leading the non-perfect scorers for the longest time, and then they got a perfect score. They should have waited till week 5. Come on. But yeah, they really did. They pushed us down because their times were amazing too. So I was like, oh, we're sitting great at this point. And then our standing was dropping. I'm like, no. So yeah, that was a fun element. Do you all have any have you all heard anything from anybody about being in the second chance, or did you like having another event going on at the same time as you all to see how they were progressing too? Were you scared they were going to get in the top 6?
I mean, I wasn't really scared, but
I think from participating last year, I think it was nice because I think some teams kind of when they realize that as the times continue to drop for some programs, it's like, well, why bother playing anymore? And I know
Yeah,
you
they
can
dropped
probably
out.
speak to this. You see a
Yeah.
lot of drop probably in the submissions later on in the competition. But I think this allowed teams to stay in longer because they were playing for something.
Yeah, now we know how to play the game too. I had to put my foot down and say, okay, you can't break the top six because I just think that's unfair. But if you can get all the way up to seventh place if you were able to do so. And man, it was looking like that was really happening. And oh my gosh, where did they end up? I have it over here. Um, the last week they were, was that the last one? No, they made it to eighth place. Wichita State made it to eighth place. They were closing in. I was starting to get worried. I was wondering, should I make a statement to make sure that you can't be in the top six because that would just mess everything up. Yeah, but I was starting to get worried because they were doing so amazing. And so the final score, the two chance showdowns were 30.39 seconds with Wichita State University, and that was eighth place, and 18th place with only 39.78 seconds with St. Luke's out of Missouri. And I could not believe that we were, seeing such a shift, as Aaron would always say, it's a left shift. But yeah, it was going crazy. So I was starting to get worried that we were going to mess up the rules of, who went into the playoffs, because if they made it to sixth place, then the playoffs didn't really exist anymore. So yeah, it was very, very close. Very, very close. Well, again, thank you all so much. I'm sorry I kept on talking.
They're
But
used to that.
yeah, it's been so much fun talking with you all today. Thank you for participating. I do want to say that this is the team that has this year, there was no dropping the ball at all. You all had every single touchdown of the week. You didn't share that spotlight with anybody. It was incredible. So we're so proud of you, and I know that Bruce, Jerry, and Lauren are, and everyone at your institution. I hope you get a ton of job offers because you all deserve it. You're doing an amazing job. Um, I guess that leads me to one last question. Is hematology your favorite subject, or do you like something else?
It's not all of their favorites, but I'll let them respond.
I think transfusion services is my favorite.
Yeah, everyone told me walking in that no matter what, like you might think you like micro, but like Bruce is gonna change your mind. You're gonna love heme. He didn't get me with heme. He got me with blood bank.
There
He
you
also
go.
taught us blood bank. So micro, Lauren did an amazing job with micro. I've always loved micro. I think that's my number one, but Bruce, you got me with blood bank. Not with heme though. I'm sorry.
We
It's
tried,
heme and
man.
blood bank for me.
Yeah. Okay. I was doing an event with
Sorry, Lauren.
another Tiffany, and we were talking about blood banking. We did a session on that, and she was saying that she's found that people that it was between blood banking and micro, and that if they didn't go into micro, they went into blood banking. And I was like, yeah, that was me too. But I ended up being general. I was in chemistry. I was a chemistry person. Obviously a generalist, but we had such a large hospital that if you were in core, you did all the different ones, and then blood banking and micro you couldn't go to because they were segregated away from everyone and they had their own staff. So I did everything but blood banking and micro when I you know, for most of the time. But yeah, so it's neat to hear this because, you know, the whole event is focusing on hematology. We're really trying to get you to do well with hematology, but it doesn't always end up being everybody's favorite, which is fine, which is fine.
There's
We
still
keep
time. We're going into clinical soon, so there's
there
still
you
time.
go. Yes. Bring your
True.
phones.
And I love looking at things under the scope. But you know, most things are routine, and that's it. It's the interesting stuff that you like to look at, and at the same time, it's not great for the patient when things are interesting.
Right.
So it's you know, a catch-22. It's either like you get something really cool to look at, but it means that, you know, something not very good is going on with the patient. So
Absolutely. Yeah. It becomes kind of selfish if we're like, oh, this is great. And the poor person is, you know, suffering. We're trying to help them. Absolutely true. All right. So any last words, any last bits of advice for anyone? Because you all are going to be graduating before our next event, right? Yeah. So we won't see you next time. So what would you pass on to your next team representing your legacy? Because man, you all brought it this year. Are you expecting the next team to bring a third Supercell Bowl win? Mary's like, heck yeah.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
bet
they
Lauren's
get
expecting
started.
it.
Well,
I was
100%
gonna
Lauren
say,
is.
if they get
Yes.
started with Lauren,
I'm looking for a three-peat. I am a UConn fan through and through. I like back-to-back championships. I'm fine with three-peat. Good. I'm ready.
Have you seen the institution put you all more forward than you have been before? Like, hey, two-time national champion.
Well, it hasn't. I mean, it's been mentioned in the department level, but I think there'll be some more recognition coming in the spring. But it's still, I mean, it's one of those things. We still have people. We're a pretty big campus, so we still have people on campus that don't really know what medical laboratory science is all about. But it's certainly given us an opportunity to get the word out there more than we had 2 years ago. So
Absolutely. You all
They
need to
did.
have like fleeces or something where you're strutting around campus like I'm the MLS team. Cell Bowl, baby.
We did just we are ordering fleeces, so we will have those. But the Allied Health Sciences, which is what we're under, did just post about us on Instagram. So maybe that'll bring a little bit of awareness for the people who are either in the general Allied Health program and maybe consider switching over, because that's how we've gotten a few of our students, right, Bruce, where they were in Allied Health and then you taught their class and said, hey, come over here.
Make the switch. Join the team. Yeah, you could build a whole program marketing thing all around. Join the team. Be a national championship winner. All right. Well, we look forward to seeing you next year. Maybe take that third win in bowling. That would be a turkey, right? Get 3 strikes. And strikes in this case are good, not like baseball. But yeah, we're looking forward to having you back hopefully next season 4. And oh man, that'll be something. So did you all get your trophy already in the mail? Not yet.
not
Okay,
yet.
so
Yep.
ASCP is still working with you on that. I'm sorry, Bruce, go ahead.
No, so yeah, we haven't gotten the trophy yet, but yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure when it's coming, but it usually takes some time.
Yeah, they have to make it and everything. Last year's was the first. They made the mold for the first time and everything. So I think Lauren's gonna build that case by hand. It's gonna be like a triple decker case just out in the hallway, block everybody from moving so they have to see it while they're going by.
I would if I could. I'd put it right
Yeah.
in the middle of the hallway so that everyone would pass it. It'd be fine.
Oh yeah, lots
Oh,
of lights.
A light show, dims when as soon as you walk past it. I'm fine with that. I'm
Spotlight,
totally fine with
no
that.
other lights on in the hallway, just on the trophy case. Heck yeah.
I'm fine with that. It's like emergency lighting, but better.
All right, well done. We're so proud of you. Keep up the great work. Let us know what you're doing in the future after graduation. Hopefully you're getting headhunted for your amazingly fast hands and quick wit and talent. So congratulations and thank you so much. And we'll see you next time. There were no questions in the chat at this time, so we didn't continuing on this UConn legacy. So find out next October. Tune in. All right, we'll see you next time. Bye.